All right, we are live. If anyone's there, I don't know, but this is going to be great. Welcome, everyone. I assume people may be watching this after the fact because I put this together pretty quickly, but welcome. We are going to have some great conversations today. The goal is for you guys, anyone watching this, to meet some amazing people. We're calling this the Rebuild and Be Awesome, the career comeback. When in the last few months, with everything going on with the government stuff, all the politics side, all the a lot of other startups, there's a lot of changes in jobs and careers, and people are quitting, people are getting let go, laid off, all kinds of things. And so really we're just going to have some people on, have some conversations. I'm going to have my co-host join me, Jessica, as we pull people in. Hey, Jessica, we are live.
Perfect. Hey, guys.
So yeah, Jessica's, like I said, I was one of the unfortunate that recently got laid off due to startup life. And then Jessica was one that recently quit because of all the things going on in the government. And so we're going to have a variety of different people on here. So we're going to pull some other folks in here. If you're watching, whether it's live or later, throw some comments in, ask some questions. This would be a great way for these people to meet some other people across my community and networks. So we're going to pull in Zach as well, and Keith. I think Keith is still there. Keith, if you're still there, go ahead and turn your camera on. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and start. Jessica, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. So like Matt said, I'm Jessica. So I recently decided to resign from the federal government. I worked in software as a mechanical engineer and systems engineer, purely just because of my family needs. I have a 6-month daughter. Hopefully she is good today. If not, maybe she'll make an appearance on camera. And I'm just needing something that is a little bit more flexible and allows me to stay home. I still love my job. I wish I didn't have to leave. So it is a little scary going into the job market, choosing to rather than being forced to. But I'm excited to be here with Matt and y'all here to see how we can help each other, find what that perfect career is, because it's out there. So thanks, Matt.
Ellie, you're welcome, 100%. All right, Zach, you're up.
Oh, hey, Matt and Jessica, thank you both for hosting this event and putting it together so quickly. I, like Matt here, have found myself in a position where rifts are happening, and I've been at startup life for a little while now after leaving government. I was both a federal civilian as a special agent with the U.S. Border Patrol and then a military officer, and had a lot of cool experiences in doing those things, but found my way into the software and AI space and kind of haven't looked back other than servicing those customers and clients. So Jessica, I have plenty of ideas of how you can embrace the discomfort of leaving the government. I myself turned in my IC badge and thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? But I've certainly been able to find some comforts outside of the Beltway space. But yeah, as I said, I'm currently living in Columbus, Ohio, not exactly the epicenter for national security. Totally recognize that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is just down the road for me, and I've certainly had some conversations with NASIC and NSIC, but I do enjoy being in the tech side of the business and being in the industry side and bringing some things that are different than what's currently on the shelf at a lot of these organizations. Even acknowledging that some things are older, less than optimal, legacy-based, and helping people understand, operating at a pace of necessity. And so, happy to help in any way I can. I'm also trying to look for my own full-time gig, but I've got my SDOVSB that I work out of as a consultant. Can certainly share some experiences doing that as well. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to have you here, Zach. And Mr. KB, Keith himself, you're up, sir.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keith Barnes, and when I saw Mohawk Matt put this up, I just wanted to join in and hear what was going on with everybody else, see if I could get some new ideas. The last couple of years, I've been doing consulting, helping startup companies move into the public sector or government sales. Created a company called GovSales, and it's been fun, but I'm actually also looking to get back into the industry. I've been a 30 some odd year sales executive for companies like Oracle and Red Hat and a few other startups. So I thought I'd see what I can pick up and learn and hopefully have a good time while I'm doing it.
Sounds great. I love it. And I see that a number of folks are watching us live on LinkedIn. If you are there and you want to join, I put the links in chat in the comments. You're welcome to come on camera, share your story, or you can just observe. This, again, like I said, this kind of came together in the last 48 hours with all the things happening and trying to give my way back, or my version of giving back to folks and help them connect to other networks. I think we're going to be doing this for the next few weeks. So I've already got 5 or 6 people, hiring managers for next week. We're going to reverse it and have them talk about some things they're looking for and some tips and things on that side. But yeah, so if you're there, even if you don't want to come on camera, let us know you're there. Throw in a comment. If you're out there looking for a job right now, trying to help, I do have a few listings I'm going to throw in the comments that people have sent me since posting this live stream. So I'll be sharing those as well. But yeah, so we're just great people here. I've got my open to work shirt on, my homemade ones I've made this week. A lot of people have seen my button up one I've been wearing at a conference. Again, we're gonna kind of go around the room a little bit and learn some things. So Jessica, for you, if you were to get an offer today, what is your perfect job that you're looking for in your skill set and situation?
I've thought a lot about that recently. And I think it's hard to know. So I used to work a ton with students, so hopefully we'll mentoring them, helping them find their way in the industry world. And the biggest thing I tell them is you don't know what opportunity comes for you, and to not say no without looking at it first. So as an engineer, I never thought that I would be doing partnerships and getting into the government legalese of the difference between like an EPA and, a MOA and an MOU, MOA, because all of those are different. That's a program manager, not an engineer. So the biggest things I'm really looking for is that it supports my family first. It's remote. I would love to get back into my systems engineering roots. I love writing those documents, the requirement documents, which I know is a little bit of a nerdy thing. Not everyone loves that. And just continuing with innovation. There is so much out there that everyone needs, not just the government. Various startups have awesome stuff. I want to make sure it's being able to be highlighted, it's out there, and then I can help.
I love it. And what if while you're open, what I like to say, kind of what you said, is you're open to every conversation. You're saying yes to every conversation to see where that goes, and that's what I love about you. And while you're open to everything, is like, what is like your thing? Like, I would just love to do this all day, every day.
I think, like I said, going back to that systems engineering route, be able to innovate. Being an engineer to me means being a professional problem solver. So I want to be able, whatever that problem is that comes my way, to find the answer. A lot of them are open book, I feel like, compared to college, where you know the answer, you can look in the back of the book, find the number. You can't do that in today's world, realistically. You have to make that answer.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. And I see we've got about a bunch more people who've joined. If you're there and you want to join on camera and share your story and what you're looking for, there's links in the comments. If you're not getting those links, send me a message. I'll get you on here with us. But yeah, so thank you, Jessica. That's a great start. Zach, what you got? What kind of similar questions? If you were to what is your dream thing you'd be doing right now that you'd want to do?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to work both at like a director level, product manager level, programming, things like that. And then I've also been a president of a small AI company. I think that each, kind of like Jessica said, each opportunity depends on a lot of things. The work culture, remote versus in office, hybrid. Certainly right now with the environment that we're seeing, there's a lot of the RTOs, even more so now. And so finding these, remote opportunities, I've been blessed to work internationally, and a lot of European friends and even friends from different parts of Asia have been sharing a lot of other remote job sites. And so expanding beyond LinkedIn, beyond the kind of normal places to look for opportunities. There's a lot of really cool resources and pockets of information that can be shared. But I really find myself gravitating towards policy and strategy related positions right now, because I found that at all these different types of companies I've been at, I've naturally been pulled into those conversations based off of my different roles in government, and capitalizing on that experience and knowledge that I have really seems like it's something that is useful, and I like to be useful. But I also like to create a measurable impact. And so I think that, when you're helping out companies that are, maybe commercial first and expanding into dual use, trying to come into the government space, I know, Keith earlier mentioned about, helping these entrepreneurs, these young entrepreneurs and founding teams explore and understand what that path looks like, possibly trying to mitigate, and forego some of the consistent barriers that you find as you enter that market space. But more or less, I'm trying to stay focused on strategy and policy, maybe even getting into the governance, which is increasingly becoming a topic that everyone's, going into with regards to AI and agentic, AI, things like that.
I love it. I love that. And is there, you have a lot of skills and background in a lot of areas. Is there a job you wouldn't take? Like, that's not really for me.
I when I was with a AWS GovCloud reseller, I had to really get in the weeds and get all the different certifications like solution architect and ethical hacker, CISSP, all those different things. And fortunately, Matt, I think you and I talked before, like I started off my career as a signal officer in the Army. And so having that kind of core background on the IT side and communications gave me some comforts and affinity for those skills. But at the same time, like I'm not finding myself as passionate about getting in the weeds on the development side, other than caring about the customer use case and knowing what's really their problem that needs to be solved. And we used to call ourselves technology translators in OSD, where we would identify what's really going on as a capability gap, and then writing it in the way that needed to be written so that the people that developed something, it was developed in a way that's actually deployable and then solves that problem. For instance, you can't build something in a lab and then deploy it to a desert or a jungle where it hasn't been tested in those environments. So just really get into understanding, the storytelling between the capability gap and the material and non-material solution developers.
I love it. I love it. I see that before we get to Keith, I see that Ryla's ready to give what she's looking for. Come on, Ryla. Let's hear it, Ryla. What do you need? What do you need in your perfect career for a 6-month-old? Jessica, she doesn't want to talk, or you can't
find the mute button. There we are. Yeah, so this is little Rilla, everyone. She's here. It's almost nap time, so she might be fussing here in a second. So for her, I think the biggest thing is either just flexibility and or that I'm home.
There you go.
She has loved, I've been able to be home for the past week and a half after taking the fork in the road. And she has loved that I'm always here and dedicated to what she needs. More snacks, more playtime, all of that stuff. I think it's also important too, though, that she does see that she can be who she wants to be, right? As an engineer, there's only a few other women in the field with us, but they're out there and it's growing. And I want to make sure that as I figure out my way in this world too, she can do that, whatever it is, musician, engineer, artist, anything, to make sure she can do it, whatever comes her way.
I love it. And I love there's really no more honorable thing to do than kind of really change your entire career path to do what you need for your family. So kudos to you, Jessica, because I know you really loved what you did. So that's a big deal for y'all. But Keith, same kind of question. So what are you looking for? What's the perfect thing? Tell us about yourself.
Well, I can tell you, after being in sales since really the late 80s, kind of date myself here a little bit, going in, doing the consulting side, it's fun. You learn something new every day. But what I really miss is I'm a coach at heart. I love helping people get better, learn new things. And I think probably one of the most rewarding jobs I ever had was when I was working at Red Hat. Had a bunch of very early in their career salespeople working with me, and got to mentor and help them grow, and seeing where they're at today. I miss that. So ideally I'd like to find some place where I could take some of this grizzled old experience and be able to help some younger reps learn how to become better salespeople, and help them understand that, sales is a 4-lettered word in most government people's vocabulary, but got to make them understand that, it's all about building the relationships and the trust, understanding their missions, and helping them make their jobs easier. And so I really would like to find something where I can get back into a first, second level manager and help reps, especially younger reps, learn and get better. I work pretty well with the more mature senior reps as well, and that's always fun too, because you can learn so much from guys that have been doing it for 10, 20 years. But it's just so rewarding to see younger reps close like their first enterprise deals or have their first really good meeting with a CSO or CTO or a branch chief or whatever else. So I'd really like to get back into that. And my forte is probably more in the DoD space. So that would be ideal. But really anything in the government, I like doing government sales. I think it's a different class of people that you're dealing with. They're public servants. They just have a drive to help others, and so it's fun to be in that space. So ideally, something like that, a DoD sales manager, someplace, an enterprise software company.
Okay, fantastic. As you guys have been on the job field, what are some things that you're annoyed by when it comes to hiring managers? And then what do you think that people can make better for people applying for jobs and trying to look for work?
For me, I will say one of the things that, and maybe this is just I'm old school again, but when you send resumes out or you contact people about jobs and then they just ghost you, back in the day, it was just common courtesy to say, hey, thanks, but we're going a different direction. And these days, you don't even see that a lot from, I'd say, a majority of the companies that are out there hiring. You don't even get that thanks, but no thanks. And to me, that's just a little disrespectful.
Sure.
I think one thing I've noticed is on that ATS systems, and I just last week I had an SVP level person at a big company say, hey, submit your resume for this, and then I got an email within 3 hours that I was thanks but no thanks. And I went back and I was like, how is that possible that you directed me to apply for that job, but yet somehow I didn't use ChatGPT or whatever tool to copy enough verbiage from the listing and then regurgitate it in my resume. And then of course he said, don't worry, I'm taking care of it. Recruiter will be in touch. But more specifically, and maybe for Jessica's consideration too, and others, when job recs show hybrid and or remote, and you get into a process even beyond like the first few calls, and they're like, oh, well, actually, even though it's remote, we actually need you in XYZ location. And so like for me, I'm in the Midwest now and no longer in the NCR. And, that's, a challenge because a lot of jobs will be listed as remote or hybrid. And, in my mind, I understand, okay, well, for several years now, I've done this, I'm sure Keith has too, being the road warrior where you're traveling and going to client sites. And for government and national security jobs, as long as you can still maintain your clearance either through your employer or through like things like special government employee opportunities, things like that, you're still credible. You're still have a wonderful reputation and access and placement to go and do your job. It seems to me, I think we've all learned since beginning of COVID that, and I was remote even before COVID, that you can still do quite well as long as you apply yourself. And so the way that jobs are listed, I think, is the interesting thing. One, they're trying to get either one, an ideal archetype of candidate, but two, casting a wide net to get as many as possible. And so LinkedIn can be a great tool for you as a candidate, but also from an HR perspective, looking at the data analytics that you can gain from that. But yeah, the way that jobs are listed with regard to location is pretty interesting. As people are coming out of the government right now or being laid off, or in Jessica's case, looking for something more flexible.
One of my favorite things, I think, along those same lines, Zach, is when they post a job, but then they already know who they're going to hire. So they're just checking the box of, hey, we're going to compete this. Please apply. You might be qualified, but we don't care, essentially. And everyone should be given that fair chance. I've put out a few resumes out there. I have about 8.5 years government service. So I'll apply to some jobs that are 10 years experience, right? Just because I have maybe not the years experience, but I definitely have the skills experience for the job. And they'll reach back and be sorry. 10 years is also a hard requirement. You don't have it. It's like, I'm close enough. If I was 3 years, I understand. 8.5 to 10. So I understand when they're looking for that perfect candidate, especially in the remote world, potentially, so they know they can trust you from the start based off your skills, your work ethic, whatever. But they need to be able to give you a willing chance. And if you're close, let you grow. I think the best employees come from the chance to grow and not just, hey, this is a cookie cutter of what you had been doing. Let's continue in that space.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. And you made me laugh because I saw something the other day where someone posted, I'm looking for a 10X employee. Have you ever seen anyone post, I'm looking for an absolute turd? I want someone that's late. I want someone that doesn't show up. I want someone that doesn't complete their work. No one's really looking for that. I feel like everyone's looking for that 10X employee. Everyone wants that go above and beyond type thing. I just thought it was funny how people advertise and how the brain works and how we engage with people. But I really like what you said, both Zach and Jessica there. Because it is. And my wife had a similar experience when I was working at China Lake. Out in California in 2013, 2015 timeframe. And she had been in a role previously for 11 months and 26 days. And the job requirement for the Navy was 12 months. And she put that actual 11 months, whatever, and she didn't qualify. And that was the only reason they could give her, which is ridiculous. Hey, Trevor, I see you just joined us. You're welcome to watch and participate in here through the chat. If you're wanting to come on camera, there's a link in the chat, or I also think I sent it to you. I put it in the comments there. Jessica, you know Trevor, right? I think you brought Trevor into us.
Yeah, so Trevor and I actually are old classmates, and our paths keep crossing. We both are engineers of different methods and different ways. So I decided to do the fun math and science way to prove that I'm smart on paper. And Trevor likes to actually show what he can do and how he can engineer his stuff. So it's been great for us to just keep in touch over the years and just see how each other's careers have been affected by our passions, right? I like the math, he wants to build. And it's been super fun to see how that happens out.
Yeah, well, I can speak for myself. I'm glad someone likes the math because I definitely do not. My family goes Marine, math professor, Marine. And so that middle brother, he got all the math in the family. And he teaches in Utah, actually. So
math is interesting. I was a math tutor for a few years. And I've actually told everyone math is an acronym for mental abuse humans. Ooh. And I am more than willing to help everyone get through that because it can be kind of hard to understand that math. So
yeah, I have been learning more about math in the last couple of weeks, watching a new show called Prime Target, where they're really going down the path of primes and the prime finder, which is probably the only math exploration I'm ever going to do. You put it in a TV show version of, you probably got my attention. Yeah, so if anyone's still there, I see the live number shifting up and down. Throw questions, comments, advice. We're just really, like I said, we put this together just to give folks a chance to get into new networks, new communities. We all know the pain of applying. We all know the pain of interviewing. And I don't know any job that people have gotten, and maybe it happens on rare occasions that you only have one interview. Zach, you kind of mentioned it. Sometimes you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews. And if you do that 10 times, you're smoked. If you're doing 50 interviews, 100 interviews, like it's exhausting. We're going to bring in another friend here. Trevor, there you go.
Okay.
We can see and hear you. Can you hear us?
I can, but I've got you another. There we go. I was like hearing you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you had it on probably still.
So yeah.
Cool.
Hey guys,
Well,
sorry for being so late.
you're not late at all. This is how it's meant to be. People can jump in, jump out when they want. So
Okay.
I think it's fantastic. Are certifications overrated is the question I want you other 4 to 3 to think about as Trevor introduces himself.
Yeah, so like Jessica was saying, I'm a little bit more of the hands-on style. I've done mechanical stuff. In high school, I did all of jewelry, woodworking, pretty much anything that I can do to build and create. I've during college, I built a Baja Bug with a Subaru engine and transmission into a '69 Beetle. As part of the Baja, it's like a single-seater UTV competition, fabricated, designed, all of that. Was in the engineering field for about 4 years. Didn't necessarily enjoy that as much, so I switched to home building. Did that for a couple, or was a superintendent for a couple of years. Designed and built my own home and my in-laws' home during COVID, and did really well there. So just love to learn, execute, learn, design, and then execute. And same thing with my landscaping. When I was doing a small business, Jessica was my first customer. So I did some finished carpentry in her home, actually right if you're on the other side of the camera, if she could flip it around, but that's her home base. So did that for her. So yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us, Trevor. I can't figure out my buttons. There we go. Yeah, so Zachary O'Neill just threw in a question right before Trevor went. Is are certifications overrated? I have a response to this, but I'm curious if anyone else does before I go.
So I can start off. I think first, certs do get overlooked. They are a great way to continue your education without needing to get another piece of paper. Degrees are great, but with how fast the world is changing, certificates are a great way to upskill and keep current. And I do wish, we talked about this a little bit earlier, I wish that hiring managers recognize that experience plus a cert is incredibly valuable, if not more valuable than a degree from 15 years ago. It probably does depend on the field you're in, though, unfortunately. But I think certs are great. And I do know there are some colleges that I think it's fantastic. They're allowing people to stack their certs now to get a degree at the end. So you can slowly work towards, upskilling yourself. Weber State does this, especially here in Utah. And then you get that piece of paper that unfortunately so many hiring managers require.
All right. Anybody else have comments? No? All right. So I actually have the opposite opinion. So I think I do want to echo first what Jessica said of it really depends on what you're trying to do and what the job field is. Because especially if you're in like IT and technology, things are changing constantly. So search can be very valuable. I'll share a quick story. 2-3 years ago, me and some other fellow people that have other businesses, some colleagues, business partners of mine, we 3 or 4 of us took this online certification together to get another skill or another learning into this field that we were doing of kind of design thinking, facilitation, strategy development type stuff. And I won't say the company, but it was a 3-month course, and I never signed in, and I got a certification when the 3 months was over. And so I never even clicked the button to take the course. And I got a certification in my email when the course was over saying you're now certified in this. And so to anyone that's looking towards that, I say be very careful and make sure that if you're hiring someone based off of a certification, then make sure they actually have the knowledge to back that up. because so I personally have very little faith in certs. Again, in certain fields, in things like IT, tech, they can be very valuable because things are changing constantly. But I would still recommend, and I've had that experience both as a business owner and an employee, making sure that person knows what they actually got certified in and has the skill set. I think skill set and knowledge is much more valuable at the end of the day. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations, companies require those certs. So I think it can go either way, depending on that. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll make a comment on like talking about college degrees and all. I've noticed a change in that requirement over the last probably 10 years, where it used to be if you didn't have a BS or a BA, you were pretty much out of luck, applying for anything in the tech industry. And over the last 10 years, I've seen that change where when people are posting, it says, BA or BS or equivalent experience, which I think is really wise. From my perspective, some of the best salespeople I've ever hired never went to college. On the technical side, especially the last 10 years, some of the most phenomenal engineers that I've worked with, one name comes up right away, Nicholas Shalon. Some of these geniuses never went to college. So I don't think that the degree is what it used to be, 10 years ago. It's definitely nice. It shows that people can apply themselves and finish. But I don't think that it's the must-have that it used to be.
I completely agree with that. For example, again, I have a mechanical engineering degree and a systems engineering degree, but worked in software. And so many people would hear that I'm in software and be like, oh, so you code? And it's like, no, if I coded, bad things would happen. You do not want me to code today. And they would kind of overlook my degree. They were just more excited in the experience I had. So it goes both ways. I think there's times that they look more at my degree, and other times they do look more at what I've done. And there needs to be that happy medium. The skills are the important part. We can teach people. What is the stat? We can teach like 80% of the technical needed for any job, any skills needed. We can't teach people how to communicate. We can't teach people how to innovate or how to be a decent human being. And that's what makes a good employee, more than that they can automatically code an AI or, know the specs behind a certain whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, I think that there's a balance between them. Just kind of thinking of how do I, as a person that's looking for a job, communicate to companies that I have the experience or the capability of doing what they need to be done. And certifications, if they're actually, like Matt says, if they're actually like taken and, actually ingested, I think that's a great way to kind of diversify yourself. I think that's what college used to be. And I think college has become a little bit more of a business model where they're just pumping people out. Instead of actually like making sure that the product at the end is what it's supposed to be. And so I think that we're starting to, I think a lot of companies are starting to see that that's what's happening. And so, yes, it proves that you can go and do something difficult, but I don't think it's as difficult as it may have been in the past. And so the product coming out isn't as good. And so those who are doing something difficult, as in getting the experience out in the field, they have something valuable as well, that instead of closing everything off, they're opening back up to that, which I think is great. Because, for example, I think it was KB that was saying it. I've got a buddy that he's a better engineer than I am, and he's never done a lick of college. He's the one that was helping me build the Baja Bug when I was in college. He became a sales engineer, and he's just a brainiac, but he just never went to college. So if somebody were to overlook him, they would be overlooking an immense talent. And that's the difficulty, is how does a business owner diversify the people that are actually applying, and how do you as a person, as an employee, diversify yourself so that you guys can connect faster? And it seems, at least on the smaller business side, I've kind of gone away from bigger companies because I don't like the culture as much. But towards the smaller business side, it's all about networking, and it's all about, making those contacts. Instead of it's a lot more human instead of mechanized or automated, where you're sending in a resume with a piece of paper, and the machine is trying to differentiate who to actually give to, the employer.
That's great. I really appreciate all those comments. Zachary O'Neill, who asked the original question if they're overrated, jumped in and said, I've lacked certification, was able to create 2 patterns that led to creation of our company. Zach, is that different Zach? Not Zach Levy. There's another Zach that joined us backstage, but your camera's not on. Is that you, Zachary O'Neill? Is that someone else?
Yeah, you guys are on my car and I'm listening. I would put the camera on, but that I don't know if that should be right.
That's not safe. You're okay.
So what I get at, and that's speak to text. It's actually, I got 2 patents, and what I mean by this is, like, I was in the Marine Corps myself for 10 years. Left the Marine Corps, went over to a company called Triple Canopy. Went there for about 5 years. Matt, you and I think was AF Works. I put in for AF Works. I've been denied by big companies because, hey, you don't have this certification or that certification yet. I take and I look at people and I look at what I went through, and these companies are really missing out. You want that Lean Sigma certification, you want this certification, and maybe I don't have those. That shouldn't be a qualifier. Being said, being able to take my experiences and given more, they missed out on a lot. These 2 patents that I have could have belonged to another company right now, but things happen for a reason. And what the patents do is they're patent for auto-generated reports. We use them in thousands of schools, even Uvalde right now. We can use them to streamline decision-making processes for the commanders in the military. And so that being said, is like, I look at it because I always think to myself, I see all these employers that are putting out job opportunities, and they, I think you hit it really well. They want that plus 10. And the thing is a lot of times I see the plus 10 ain't really a plus 10. Once you get them on board and everything, that plus 2 is probably just as good as that plus 10. And I think that we rely on these certifications and these degrees. And that's one of the things that I just wanted to bring into the conversation.
Yeah, I think I have a little different issue than a lot of you guys, where you have an issue with the plus 10. My problem is when people look at my resume and they see 30 years, they go, oh, crap, this guy's a crusty old dinosaur. And in the IT business, people don't want to talk to, old dinosaurs like me. And I think they write off the people experience and the ability to read and understand what's going on. And so from my perspective, I'm very confident that I've gotten passed over on a lot of jobs just because of my age.
So I have something to input. It seems is everybody kind of, when we're talking about employers and stuff, are we talking about bigger companies or are we talking about smaller companies?
I see it in both. Like if you look at somebody like me that's been around for a long time, you see a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm looking for consistency. I want someone who's been somewhere for 10 years or whatever else." And in my space, in the sales space, you just don't see that very often. And then especially with what I've been doing probably the last 8 to 10 years where I've been working with startups, we all know more startups fail than take off. So I've got several jobs on my resume over the last few years. So they look at it and they go, "Oh, this guy's got 11 different jobs. We're going to dismiss him right away because he's a job hopper," instead of looking at, well, I've been out there for almost 35 years.
What's the why behind the what? They're just looking at the what. Because to me, it seems like to Zach's point, it seems to me like bigger companies, like the company I was working at when I was an engineer, it was a meat grinder, and I come from manufacturing, and so the lean and all of that, which is great, usually gets picked up by business people, and they love the business aspect of it and they hate the people aspect of it. And for the most part, if you start dissecting those two, then your lean collapses. So I always like to ask people, like, do you really understand lean, or do you just understand the business aspect of lean? Because a lot of people will grab onto it. And this employer was supposedly like the lean leader, but after a couple of years in there, they had some great options, but even though they said they were doing the whole lean, they really weren't. There was a lot of holes, and so they're pretty much set up to process people. Come in, you don't have to have you don't have to be a top performer. Actually, you're punished, or you don't get anything for being a top performer. You're a warm body in the seat that can do 50% of the work, and we're going to pay you 50% of what salary is, and that's the system. And so that's why they don't get the patents that Zach was talking about. And that's okay. If that's their business model, that's okay. But it seems to me, with the more limited experience that I have, the smaller companies have more of that interpersonal experience. They're willing to talk and sit down. They're willing to give a chance, and it's not always perfect, but I think they're more willing to ask the why behind the what, because their system really isn't set up to just kind of churn and burn.
Yeah, I wonder, these application tracking systems, how many candidates that the hiring manager would really like to talk to that get eliminated because the ATS just filters them out.
I think the interview is one of the best parts actually of the job search. Having sat, now I'm going to be the interviewee again, but I've sat on quite a few interviews as the interviewer, and it was great to actually get to know someone. Do they actually know what they're talking about, whether it's a degree or a certification? Tell me about your experience. Maybe Zach has some insight on this. I think AI could really change how resumes look. And I don't know if that's going to change the job search here coming up, right? Because I could use any AI to change and update my resume. Have you guys all seen, there's a LinkedIn post at some point. You describe how to change a light bulb, and you were the manager of a 2-person operation that, optimized the utilities within an area. So sometimes it really is just how you describe it on paper that'll get you the in-person that you needed to actually land the job.
Yeah, I think that there are certain challenges. Once the world of MOOCs hit the internet, the massive open online courses and certifications, my brother, who's a PhD in Chicago, was all over these things and was like, I did my degree here, it's a prestigious school, it's hard, and now he works for University of Chicago, and he's like, but people are getting these certificates from other Ivy League schools and other big name schools, and it's only an executive summary kind of course thing, but yet that's what you see on their LinkedIn profile, or that's what's at the top of their resume or their CV. And I know from my own firsthand experience, one of my colleagues, a lieutenant colonel in the Army, he got to do advanced civil schooling at Stanford as a GSB Sloan Fellow. And I was doing my MBA at the same time, and he's like, we have the same books in our home libraries, same courses. It's just, Jessica, your point earlier about another piece of paper. And, there are certain industries certainly where certifications are necessary because you have to keep up with, trends and emerging technologies. But when it comes to, how you actually represent that on paper, there are, I think, in my opinion, as I've been a leader into businesses, a lot of opportunities missed when it comes to the people, the humans in this discussion, because an ATS, for instance, is only looking for a 65% match on keywords, and it's their defined keywords, and so it creates this robot response of copy the job rec and how do I match that with my core resume, my general resume, so that it'll hit at a high enough score that I can get to that initial interview. But to your point, I think that when you've served on interview panels or when you've been someone that's interviewing or making hiring decisions, you gain so much more talking to the actual human than you could ever hope to gain from a piece of paper, because you could have all the credentials in the world and still just not be a good fit for that company, for the culture. And so whether or not, I've recently seen some tools that you pay a fee per month, per quarter, per year, whatever, and it will tailor your resume every single time for jobs that you say sound good. And you can even go a few steps further and say, like, and it's all just using different LLMs and NLP type things, right? But you can set it up so that it will tweak your base resume. Say you have one focused on this core task, one resume focused on this core task, etc., right? And then you say, hey, use these as a foundation and prompt away, with different LLMs. But I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, on the HR side, they're using tools to disrupt different generated content coming in. And so I think it's an interesting time to be experiencing all this, especially given all the flood of high quality talent in the market space right now. And so we'll see.
Yeah, there is a lot of high quality talent out there, and I want to shift real quick. And if anyone's still there joining, here's your last chance. We got about 12 minutes left. If you want to come on camera, share your story, we'll stop what we're doing, and you can come share who you are, so other people in the community can see you and see what you're looking for. And like I said in the beginning of this session, I'm going to be doing these weekly, probably every Friday for the next few weeks. And next week I've already got some folks on the hiring side that have agreed to come on to kind of share some openings they have, some tips and advice from HR managers and some hiring people and stuff. So if you're there and you want to join, grab the link. It's in the comments. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, just ping me and I'll get you the link real fast. But the last thing that was kind of said was related along the lines of I heard at least standing out, because there was a lot of high quality talent. There's a lot of people interviewing. There's a lot of people thinking, how do you guys stand out and I want you to think about this question, because I'm going to start it. What do you think about how you stand out and how you can stand out in the hiring process or interview process or anything at all? And I'll kind of start as you think about that. From my perspective, I think most people on here probably saw my shirts that I've been wearing all week that say open to work. I've had a button up. I was at a conference all week with a button up. One person asked me, like, isn't that an expensive shirt to ruin? Like, yeah, but if it gets me the next thing, it's worth it. And it already had a hole in it, so I was good. But I bring that up because and I don't do this to gloat. I do this to share the advantage of doing things differently than everyone around you. This was a 4,600 person conference I was at. There's probably a lot of their people that are looking for jobs, because conferences are great job fairs, if you don't know that. But I didn't ask one person for, hey, are you hiring? Are you doing this? Because I brought them to me, because it was so different. It was so out of the norm. And I think most of you are kind of in the government space, in the government community, to not show up in a button up, not show up in a suit, to have this homemade spray painted t-shirt and button up shirt. it was very different. But that shirt got me 17 conversations and things just from wearing, because they would approach me, and some of them knew me already, so they were inquiring because of that, but it caught their attention. Others said couldn't tell if my shirt was real and if it was just a fun joke. So like that's what my advice, as before these folks share theirs, is be different than everyone around you. Like try to find a way. Like in this case, I literally physically stood out, where if you walked by me, unless you're not paying attention, you could have not missed it. But what about you guys? How do you guys stand out among the competition, or have you in the past?
I mean, right now, as I'm doing interviews and stuff like that, I've tried to be more vulnerable, actually, and talk about some of my limitations to make sure that it's a good fit. So I work with something called idiosymptomatic hypersomnia, which pretty much means we don't know why, but you're tired all the time. It's very similar to narcolepsy, and that means that my mornings are really hard. So a job that is, hey, you've got to be here at 6 o'clock in the morning or else it's not going to work. I just talk to them about that, and I say, hey, if that's something that you guys need, if that's your system, if that's how you're set up, then maybe it's not a good fit. And I think just bringing some of that humanity back in, instead of being robotic, instead of what do you want to hear, trying to be more on the lines of, hey, I've set me and my family up to where I don't have to take a job out of desperation. So I want to make sure that it's a good fit on both sides. So what's going to fit for you, and then I'll share what's going to fit for me. And that way, hopefully it's a more long-term fix. It's not something, because I don't like spending energy, jumping from job to job. If I can find a good job that I enjoy what I'm doing, I love it. So it's been interesting. I don't really know. I'm in the experiment phase. But just seeing the people's change, like my last interview, I asked him about their morning routine, and he almost got a little defensive, and I thought he was going to get defensive on the side of like, you need to be here at 6, but he got defensive on like we need to be kind of open between 8 to 5, 8 to 6, because we do some remodels. And when he continued to talk about it, he's like, a lot of guys like to be here, from 6 to 3, but I still have to be able to access you, until 5. And I was like, oh, that actually works better for me because I don't do mornings well. So it seemed like, I thought actually, I was like, crap, I just screwed it up. But it seemed like it actually fit better, and said, oh yeah, okay, this is why this fits better for me. And this is the why behind my question. And it seemed to really turn the conversation around, where he kind of started to relax and be like, oh, he's not going to try to, push and force and whatever. Rather, he kind of relaxed and stopped getting so defensive. And so when the next questions came up, I told him about, what I work with and stuff, and how I work around it. But it just seemed to really kind of smooth out the rest of the conversation, and it opened him up to be able to be, I would maybe not necessarily vulnerable, but more open with what he's looking for, what's worked in the past, what's worked, or what he's hoping to have work in the future. And just bringing that humanity back in. I know that doesn't help with, before the interview, but in the interview, I feel like that is a good one.
I love that. And before I let you guys go, I'll just mention a comment that Paul said real quick. I think it's valuable in our previous conversation about certs. Certs are often a byproduct of meeting a government LCAT for contract work. So, and Paul, if you don't know Paul Puckett, he was in the gov space. He's been on the SCS side. He's at Clarity. Got a lot of experience in the government side of the house. So that's really good input, Paul. Thanks for that. What about that other question? Anyone else? So we've only got about 5 minutes left. Anyone else want to chime in on that or anything else?
One of my favorite things actually is to remind people that I'm human besides an engineer. I had an English teacher who once told me she got an interview because she plays the bassoon on her resume. So I need to add a little personal section again. I am a crazy cat lady. You guys saw after I got rid of Little Rilla, the black cat decided to come in. I also crochet. I stress bake. And I think that helps people realize, yes, she knows what she's doing from the 8 to 5 or whatever the hours are, but she can also be a decent person. And if we need snacks, they'll come in for the Friday meeting type of thing. Being an engineer doesn't necessarily make me unique. It's everything else that I do outside of the engineering. I was a musician before coming to engineering. That doesn't happen very often, to do that type of switch from playing the piano and clarinet to doing math all day long and solving those problems. They are related if you think about it, but not many people do that.
That's great. Anybody else? All right.
I would just offer a quick understanding, to Jessica's point about the human factors. And I used to help with narrative doctrine across the DoD and understanding your own personal narrative, your own story. And so with your resume and how you apply to opportunities, telling that story. And there's a lot of great, books and quick PDF things like that on storytelling strategies, but being able to understand and tell your story, especially when you think about yourself amongst the competition, and there are a lot of high quality people entering the workforce, and race for new opportunities, differentiating yourselves because you're your own independent person. You have your own unique attributes, and being able to just tell that story. And maybe that means putting in some of that, humanity into your resume. So it's not as black and white, just words, but finding a way to tell that story.
You're on mute, Keith.
Sorry about that. A friend of mine has been putting a lot of interesting posts up on LinkedIn, and it's the thing that he's working on right now is being able to practice your interviews, and he's using AI. So if you look up Mark Flournoy, Flournoy, he's got some pretty neat stuff. He recently left AWS, basically retired, but he's been putting some pretty interesting links out there using AI to be able to practice your interview. You basically put in what your job is, the type of person you're going to be interviewing with, and they'll go through the process with you. And you can use most of the major AI systems that are out there. I thought that was pretty cool. If you guys wanted to look at that and try to give it a practice.
Yeah, that's cool. Good timing. We got another comment here from Paul saying people looking for a new role should be leveraging their network of people they know to get introductions. Know it or not, you have a brand that either you need to leverage or to build. I agree with that completely. I love that. Thanks, Paul, for that input and that advice, because it really is. I like actually in my last week of everything going on. It's like, oh, I actually have to rewrite a resume. I haven't done a resume in like 3 or 4 years because I started my own company, and all of that became to me getting this other thing and kind of pausing my company for a little bit. And so the power of your network and the power of that is such a strong thing that I don't think people utilize as often as they can. Like, it's very easy to just say, hey, go to Indeed, go to LinkedIn, go to Monster. And just, it's not easy. It takes time. But for many, it's easier than talking and asking for help. It can be a lot harder to ask for help. But really, that power of asking for help. And when people say, like, hey, because I always hate when someone says, hey, how can I help? And, like, I don't know. And so I've been, with everything going on this week, I've been, like, very honest. Like, well, I need this. I need this kind of introduction. I'm wanting to do this. Like, be very specific. And if someone's offering, take them up on it. And maybe they can't help. Maybe they can. Paul followed up with, it's why Matt was able to wear a t-shirt and get 17 conversations. The network, it really is the fast way. And everyone does have a brand. And if a lot of people are afraid to put their brand out there because it might be polarizing. But I think it's more valuable to know who does and doesn't like you in the beginning, because if it's fake, then it's going to be bad later. And so
Like
getting
dating.
that out, like dating, yeah. Thanks, Zach. You got to jump. Appreciate your comments, Zach. Really appreciate it. The other Zach already left too. So, yeah, great conversation. Last chance. Anything everyone wants to say before we go?
No, Matt, thanks for pulling this together. This is awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for everyone that's joined us. If you're still there, appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, I'm going to try to do these more often. I know there's a lot of people changing jobs. As that goes, myself, I'm probably building life back into my company. So a lot of those 17 conversations were contract related. So that's kind of the route I'm going, most likely. But like Jessica and I were talking earlier on this, I'm saying yes to every conversation. There is no wrong thing. And I think in the beginning, when I first jobs hunted, when I left the government in 21, I didn't say yes to every conversation. I was like, I would blow it up before I even talked to them because I thought I knew what I wanted, kind of like Jessica was hitting on, where you really just don't know where you're going to fit and what's the right thing going to be. So give it a shot. Might be the right thing. If you want to join us next week, please do. I'll pull a couple people on camera that are looking for jobs again as well. But I've also got some folks lined up that we're getting scheduled to come on and share some of their experience as hiring managers, just so we can kind of flip the script and kind of help people out in a different way. Otherwise, Jessica, KB, Trevor, any last thoughts? Here's your chance. Say hi, Mom. Anything?
This has been fun. It has been great. I'm hoping that those who also joined were able to get some benefit from this. It was fun for Matt and I just to be like, how can we help? The world is changing daily. I myself only had about 4 days to figure out, am I actually going to do what I need to for my family, or am I just going to stay in my current job? So the world's fast-paced, and we will be able to solve it together. That's the only way through.
100%. Thanks, Paul. I just saw your message. I'll hit you up, have you come on for the next one. Paul just agreed to help out in the manager session. So that's awesome. That's what this is all about. This was literally, I saw something happening Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I started texting Jessica and I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And it just kind of happened. So you four, don't go away. Don't hang up on me. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in. We'll be in touch. If you're watching this later, add comments, jump in, and I'll get back to them. So thanks, everyone.